His Dionysus cult. And this is from the television version. He made both an opera and a television version. And wrote actually life stories for all these baccae that don't exist in Euripides' play. He gave them sort of individual backgrounds.
Så kom hit till vår gudstjänst. Alla tysta. Och med andakt hör vår evigt sjungna sång. Dionysos hyllningshymn.
And that's from the rehearsal, piano rehearsal.
Men hans ärelystnad och hans hämndlystnad var i paritet med varandra.
I think I'll stop here. And he goes on to pontificate and talk about this. Quite interesting shooting here also later. But in any case, here you can see her coming there dressed as a man.
Där han ska sätta fruktansvärda och sedan åratal välplanerade hämnd.
Okay. So my point is that if you, for instance, go and see Persona, I'll end with that. If you haven't seen it, that's the one Bergman film you should see, because it picks up this what has been then considered in by being kind of a story of a lesbianism, whatever, but I don't think it is. I think it's more like the Euripides thing, that is the relationship between an audience who is in adulation, total belief, blinded by a god who steps down to them. And in Persona, you'll see an actress played by Liv Ullmann who has the same effect on the nurse who's taking care of her. The nurse gets totally sucked up for artistic reasons for that actress into her character. So it deals with those that dynamic. So if you go and see only one film, go and see that one. Anyway, thank you for your attention.
Really pleasure to have Marit Koskinen with us here, since I was sitting as you are sitting right now for almost 20 years ago, having lectures and seeing the movies exactly in the same place. My name is Jelena Mila, for them who is new or probably don't know me, and I'm living in Sweden since 20 years ago, 1998, finished Faculty for Drama Art 93. And when I met first time Marit Koskinen at the Faculty for Drama Art or Film Institute in Sweden, I was totally amazed. Since I was listening, you write that things that we actually heard for the first time here about Bergman, about Fanny Alexander, Persona, and things that we saw at the Kinoteca here, that we are actually have possibility to say it again from today until next 7 coming days. And when I heard for the first time Marit Koskinen talking about cinema in a huge, and then taking to the petitesse within Bergman and his work, I was thinking, oh, I would like to have Marit standing here and speaking in front of you. We have a little time, and I really appreciate that. If you have some questions, just use the opportunity to ask this wonderful professor something that we hear her. Yes?
Wait, Jackie.
And then what were the other ones
other two ones?
Diana and Hebe. Diana being the sort of Vestal virgin hunter, equal to the man, and Hebe being the goddess of youth, I think. Yeah, which is, yeah.
As I remember in Persona, the main character, played by Liv Ullmann, is mute because she has to do this really difficult part in theater. Now I don't remember which one, but her character in this theater drama, I think, does she need to kill like her maybe kid or something like that? So actually, my connection is, what do you think is Bergman's connection and approach to Greek drama? You know, to not only mythology but real drama.
He wanted to stage one of those famous ancient dramas towards the end of his life, precisely because they were so free in their approach and different to what it is to be human. That is, also in gender terms, that they questioned the relationships to the gods on Olympus. They questioned the relationship between human beings down on Earth. I forget what drama it was. Probably not an answer to your question, but he did, all through his life, I think, come back to certain, at least, if not ancient plays. I might have mentioned here previously that he put up, for instance, Urfaust by Goethe, which is certainly not ancient, but in the same sense, but that he knew his the history of drama and certainly saw how the issues at the time could be reinterpreted anew for a different time, a different medium, but with essentially similar issues at hand. You know, where, you know, the ancients were only ancients over there doing their thing, but that actually were relevant to the here and now. But I can't give you any particular, because I'm not a, you know, theater expert, but maybe somebody in here is. Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't remember that play that I really wanted to put on. But that says something. Yes, he did. He staged a lot of dramas there too. Strindberg, for instance, August Strindberg. He also staged a few of his own plays, I seem to remember. I mean, what makes Bergman really interesting for a media scholar, if you're interested in media history and in media archaeology, you can see a person who is, as soon as something new comes, he was onto it. Radio wasn't new in the 40s, I know that, but he was, whatever was there that he could use, he was there. I mean, television was new in 1956 in Sweden. Television drama, which went right out into the air, not being taped. He made his first television drama in 1957. He just had to be there and sort of test the new medium. He was there, and I think he understood radio, the voice, the power of the voice, the power of sound, and what you can do with that, rather than, or in conjunction with dialogue and other atmospheric sounds. Very astute when it came to, and if you listen to The Silence, the film called The Silence is not called Silence for nothing. It's because it reduces the dialogue and it tries to pull in other ways of telling a story, among them sounds and music, of course. Anyway, that was one answer. Yeah. No,
okay.
He just scratched his head. That's okay. Everything, well, looks like everything is crystal clear, quite simply.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, because Bergman is quite huge and wide, and in any level of creativity we can find something in the music, in a drama, in the theater, which was for me very special. That was that he took quite a lot classical way of relation, way of acting, and making of that something modern and something new. That is something which is really giving him total credits in any level. Whatever he is on the right ground and just going up somehow. I feel it, at least in acting way, how he worked with the actresses and actors. Do we have who we have here? Is it production? Is it acting? Is it directing? Can we see how much director have we here? Okay, good. Well, and then actors, screenwriter. Good. What we have more? Production. Bergman was not doing a lot with the production, actually, only I can see, or an acting.
The thing is, he was there. He had his fingers all over the place. In production, he was for Swedish film, Svensk Filmindustri, SF, the biggest production and distribution company at the time. He was actually their artistic director in the early 60s, before he then became the head of the Royal Dramatic Theatre. Also, later on, one of his actresses, for instance, in The Silence, that you just saw here in the sort of trailer, she became a director herself, and he produced those films. So he had his own production cinematograph company in the early 70s. And so he was really all over the place, but then he was in a privileged position, certainly, one should say. I think there is probably a lot of people who didn't dare to say no to him. And if somebody did, he had to call them, like he called me because I said no. So say no sometimes, and you can wake up the king.
Yes?
And I started very early from my school days to look movies and to went away out of school and out of lessons. And I can say that from the point of psychology, psychotherapy, that he also had psychotherapeutic experience with his existential psychotherapist. And he learned a lot from his experience, especially I'm working with my students, Strawberry Fields. It's a very, very good how generations repeating the sad stories, but finally somebody can resolve the issue. Victor Siestrem and his main character, Professor Borg, and something happened, miracle in his family, because he just resolved the issue. And that was very fascinating how was my colleagues missed that wonderful way of healing, of working with people. And he was a master of psychology, psychotherapy, I can say. But he was not, he was divided inside and outside. The part of him was very interesting in the play. I cannot go into details, but I'm very thankful to you and to him. And I don't know, it's a pity I'll stay so not so long to talk and to see our presentation kindly and like.
Okay. Well, I agree. Ingmar Bergman is certainly psychology and psychoanalysis is huge. You know, you can find leaders, psychotherapy too. And for sure, Wild Strawberries. I think that's being shown, isn't it? And it's one of those wonderful old classics where you can see it's super Freudian. I mean, it's first-person narrative. It's a journey. It's a kind of a road movie on the surface, going forward in space, but it goes backwards in time through the internal imagery of the old professor in the film. Really quite wonderful. He did what James Joyce and Virginia Woolf did 50 years earlier in literature. Bergman did in the 50s.
But psychoanalysis is pessimistic, but it is optimistic movie. And he started with his subconscious mind just putting into his dreams. Later it was more narrative, not so many dreams in his movies.
Mm-hmm. Or rather, the dreams in Wild Strawberries are there as dreams. You know they're dreams because aesthetically Bergman holds you by the hand. You don't never have to be lost. But in Persona, you don't know what the status of the images are. Is this a dream? Is this reality? Yes. Which makes it so fascinating. Yes. And it's only 10 years between those two films, but it's like 100 years, really, if you look at it.
Yes, yes. As I remember, he thought that he finished with comedies, something I read somewhere, and he started Women Waiting, but I don't know if he finished with comedies.
If we have more questions, I probably have one. How it was when Ingmar Bergman chose just you to take his archive work even during his life? How it happened?
Well, well, I think I mentioned it. I think basically he wanted to have someone who he knew his work. I mean, I had written a PhD thesis, a doctoral thesis on Bergman's aesthetics in film, and he happened to like it. I didn't contact him, maybe I should say that. I wrote it in the early 90s, I never contacted Bergman himself, and 1 week after my doctoral defense, I had Bergman on the phone, wondering who the F this person is, who's didn't contact him. Well, that was part of my mythology. Why should the director have the last answer to his or her work? I mean, the work is always bigger than the person who makes it, basically. So I guess that made an imprint on him, and we didn't have a contact, but then he called me about, well, in the end of the 90s, when he realized that he was getting old and all that, and he wanted to have his stuff taken care of. And it was an offer you couldn't refuse that offer. I quote The Godfather there, basically.
I actually remember that day when you were taking archive, how can I say, keys in your hands. Thank you so much. Tonight is opening of Bergman Week, which we have make for public in Belgrade, and especially for you, I will say, together with the embassy and together with some partners that helped to be made, Swedish Film Institute and Swedish Institute. And please come. Exact schedule we have on a website, and Marit will be there especially, and some people you probably know, Miroljub Stojanovic and Nikola Jutsa, who is very inspired by Bergman, and we will speak about Bergman in some kind of dialogue in front of public. Projection tonight and tomorrow, screenings are at 8 o'clock. Come and see. Welcome and enjoy. It will be a real pleasure. Thank you, Marit.
Och det är ett kluster här.
Det känner ni precis. Ni känner inte varandra. Ja. Och Jelena, du har väl spelat i de största serierna här i alla fall. Den senaste det gäller oss förtjänst att vara här.
Jag utvärderar sådana som håller på med det.
Det var bra. Jag kan tänka att det har uppstått en rad missförstånd. Så att
Kommer jag ambassadör?
men saken är att först har vi fått reda på att vi ska använda det vid ingången. Men sen så blir det här med Jelena med Milena Drag. Då blir vi hänvisade till sidoingången. Och sen så förbereder jag alla på sidoingången. Och sen så när vi kommer in så blir vi hänvisade till ingången. Det kommer vi.
You fix. Fixa till.
Ja.
Ja, det var faktiskt... Ja, det Jag kom på en hel tema för service. Jag förstår ju att unga människor idag är så kenyanska sändningar. Vi hade fått tillgängliga texter. Då hade jag med mig några ganska så
Gracias.